I mean, you're born ready. Listen, I mean,
can you say that again?
You are born ready, sir. Born to be wild, but still born ready.
I like it.
So you may have noticed that what are we? We're 8 minutes late. We had for the second week in a row now. We had a failure to launch on the LinkedIn Live. I don't know. I might have to get Reid Hoffman on the phone. Might have to get him on the line. What happened now, Ryan? What are we already starting? What now?
When you say we had a failure to launch, can you unpack that for the listeners?
Yeah, you and I have a podcast and we share culpability of whatever happens. And so we had a failure to launch because LinkedIn has deplatformed you, and I'm trying to overcome that by bringing you on foolishly. But I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help LinkedIn. I need some help back. I don't know, man. So speaking of which, you were just telling me off air that there's these social media platforms that are coming online that haven't really thought through the freedom of speech element and sort of what it takes to actually be a social media platform. So maybe we're being censored. Maybe the fact that maybe the fact that you and I are both connected to DRW. I don't know what's going on here, but hopefully.
I'm enjoying it.
I don't know. Hopefully, like 2022, we'll be able to get on LinkedIn Live. I mean, I know that probably sounds aggressive at this point.
Aggressive.
Actually, here you go. Is the Ever Given gonna get unhinged from the Suez, or are we gonna?
It's already unhinged now to see.
Well, that's what they say. Has that been independently verified?
There's a video, a deep fake on there's a deep fake on Twitter at least. So.
Oh my God. I was looking at that story from just obviously an outsider's perspective. Didn't really dig into a lot of the details. I'm sure you guys covered that ad nauseum on some of the other podcasts that you run. But it's fascinating to me that something like that can still happen in this day and age, and that there's not what I'm going to call an easy solution. There seems to be some pretty common sense engineering and sort of whatever fail safes that should make sure that something like this, if it does happen, can be remediated quickly, but also that you should never get in this situation. Was this just curious what your high level take is? Was this just an epic failure of procedure, or was there some where does the culpability in this lie, in your opinion?
I'm a little bit stunned that you're surprised by anything after 2020, to be quite honest with you.
Listen, I'm trying to buy into the whole reset thing that we're pretending as though 2020 didn't happen. Isn't that part of the deal that we're just moving on?
Okay, if you want to pretend, then yes. Look, my understanding is there's reports that the ship lost power and there's high wind. And so what Anas Al-Haji explained was that when the ship hit the sand, it went up on the sand. And so the problem is as they dug it out, it just sank lower. And so it's not as easy as just it was kind of a confluence of events that once it got stuck, it wasn't as easy as just give it a few yanks off.
Well, if something is stuck in sand and the more you dig, the deeper it goes, wouldn't you put water under and boats are supposed to float, yes?
Well, right. So if I understand correctly, that when it didn't go into the sand like this, and so once you dig it out, it just ready to float back. It would have sand like this. So it's not as simple as you got to keep digging to get the ship balanced back out before it would float back out.
So I don't know if you saw a couple of the memes that were floating around Twitter, but the whole idea of
King Kong
so that one was good, but I loved the one with all the balloons tied to it. The up.
Yes, I like the pyramid. Did you see the pyramid one? They stacked all the carts on like a pyramid on the side. I thought that was pretty funny.
Oh Lord. But yeah, I mean, at 100, I think I read there was $100,000 a second or $100,000 a minute in lost revenue. Good to get that engine back up and running.
According to Anas, he said that it's not uncommon for there to have problems like engine failure in the canal. Mm-hmm. Most of them are just resolved and fixed before. He said that that he's been there actually, and he said that they're pretty good at what they do. It's just one of those deals.
Curious. I mean, did you and Anaz, or maybe you and Ellen, dig into what we think maybe some lost leaders here? Sort of what I'm sure that we won't feel any sort of ramifications of that event, today. But maybe in I don't know a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, there may be. Is there any sort of ramifications of this that you're expecting in the market?
Well, there's allegedly going to be a shortage of toilet paper potentially. So we'll see. I mean, ironic, right? After 2020, it's a ship stuck in a canal that gets us. So the other thing though to watch is the insurance business. And so, what will be deemed as who's liable and responsible for this? Because the insurer of the Ever Given is theoretically responsible, but they can't pay for the damages. There's too many. And so, but these insurance clauses are kind of weird because when I was looking at importing from South Africa, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's something like if a Russian submarine sinks it at sea, it's something crazy like that. The insurance will cover it. So I'm curious if there's like if you're 3 meters into the Suez Canal and you have ship failure, and there's an easterly wind, because we had some really weird there was one about hurricanes, and depending on if a hurricane sank the ship and when it counted or didn't count, and so I remember I don't remember who it was, but there was something about a Russian submarine sinking it that was like what. Like, hold on. The fact that you won't insure it makes me think the risk is a lot higher than I realized. I think right now, if someone called you up and said, Ben, will you insure me for a Russian submarine sinking my tanker? I would take that bet all day. I would say, yes, here's your policy. Next.
So I have one caveat. I agree with you, but if you're going to insure that policy, or if you're going to institute that policy, you need to have it be called Hunt for Red October 2.
I like that.
I assume you've seen. Have you seen the movie?
Oh yeah, Crazy Evans. Read the book.
Nice. That's one of the few instances that I think I would tell you that I enjoyed the movie substantially more than the book. Usually the book is better. I like the movie a lot more.
You've told me this before. I said you're wrong before, and I'll say you're wrong again. I am not. Here's why. I am not a big Alex Baldwin as a lead. I think he's a good number 2. He's a good peripheral as a lead. I don't know if he's whiny. I don't know. There's something about his voice, and he does it. Plays Jack Ryan much better.
I would like to point out, for whatever it's worth, that you thinking that it's noteworthy that you telling me I'm wrong, so I'm gonna remember that's a more than daily occurrence. I mean, I don't see how that's I mean, not to say that it's not valid, but
obviously. Well, where's the
we're going banner free today. I don't know what you're talking about. This is on air, as real as it gets. Listen, Ryan, you're a guru. You do this literally 24/7. I don't even know where the banner thing is. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it's the thing that says banners. Don't
the facts. So I gotta ask you. Are you still hyped about NFTs?
I'm very, but like we talked about, I think we talked about it on air last time, and stop me if we did, and I'm just regurgitating the same thing. Maybe it was off air, but I'm much more intrigued by the efficacy and sort of some of the use cases in the macro sense of sort of the larger picture. So as an example, I'm sure one of the really hot items right now, and people have sort of gravitated to, and certainly one of the things that's gaining notoriety, is called NBA Top Shot. NBA Top Shot is a established NFT marketplace where they are monetizing short clips of NBA basketball games and players, etc. And while that is an interesting thing, and I think it's a really cool use in this kind of infancy of this market, what I look at there is that, so right now all these things are one of ones, quote unquote, and they're NFTs and they're non-fungible tokens that can't be reproduced. But what happens after 6 NBA seasons, and now you have 400,000 of these things? I think the value add significantly drops as there's more and more inventory. So when I'm talking about the NFT space and looking at that, whether it be from an investment thesis or wanting to create something or what have you, I'm looking at more of the. So let me back up. One of the things that I think is really interesting, and this is something that I'm sort of still figuring out on the fly, so I don't want to paint a too clear of a picture. But imagine a world where so we've already started with virtual reality and sort of these alternate universes, artificial intelligence, etc. Right? And so, what if there was a world? What if there was an application of these NFTs where you could build essentially a metaverse of an NFT that is unique to you? You can create the world, and so rather than playing Xbox for 6 hours at a time, you can put on a VR headset and step into your own metaverse that you've created and built, and you can kind of interface within that. And then if you and I have both created those things, there would be a way. Again, I think the NFT, the backdrop of the structure. Hold on, the backdrop of the structure would allow for you and I to each have our individual universes, but for them to interface, interplay together. And so I think the NFT space is sort of moving towards a virtual reality world type of dynamic rather than like this NBA Top Shot thing, which is cool. It's proof of concept. You can clearly make a ton of money at it. But I don't think that those sort of things are going to be maybe even in existence in 5 years from now. So I know you want to say something there. So
have you read Ready Player One?
No, you mentioned that to me off air this week, I believe. I have not read it yet. There's another book called
Ready Player Two. Follow up.
I'm going to forget what it's called. It's Snow something that I did read, and that talks about the metaverse thing that I'm sort of describing. It was a book came out in 2013. I'll pull it up as you're talking. But what's
I mean, Ready Player One isn't exactly what you're talking about, but it's some very similar themes into it. Also, you could consider checking out Infinite by Jeremy Robinson. That also kind of has these themes as well. Those books all end badly. Well, they don't end badly like as in everyone dies, but there's some problems with this meta universe, multiverse reality that I remember when I was a kid, my dad would talk about, he goes, well, it'll pass me up, but at some point you'd be able to put on a headset or whatever, and it'll be like you're actually playing quarterback for the Saints. You just drop back and you throw it. And it seems to me, and this is where my ignorance comes in, we're too far away from tricking the brain to thinking that it's actually inside of the VR. So to play quarterback for the Saints, you got to move around. Like, you got to drop back. That's a lot of square footage for an apartment or for a house to have. So I don't know how we get to these spots to where we can trick the brain to thinking that it's actually inside of a VR simulation and you just operate there without actually having to move your body. What am I missing?
So I was reading, or one of the new advents in the virtual reality world is this company that essentially, so imagine a treadmill, but the treadmill can go at 360 degrees depending on just which way you're facing. And so you stay stationary, but you're able to traverse an alternate world like this by standing on this treadmill. And so I think things like that are going to become in vogue if this sort of thing happens, because you're right, you can't actually freeform walk around. But I think there's technology out there today that would kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. That doesn't interest me. I'm curious. Does it interest you? Like if you could go to like the Ready Player One, you put on the headset and you just kind of zoned out and you're ready to roll. Does that interest you?
So when you say it doesn't interest me, I mean, do I have an interest in me doing that necessarily? Not really, but I'm not a video game guy. I'm not really a tech nerd. I don't really lean into any of those things. My response to that is, I mean, like the Oculus One and those sort of virtual reality headsets have become incredibly popular within the spheres that they're popular in, and they've taken or they've created a ton of market share. And so I think there is an unbelievably large market for something like that. For me personally, not so much. But, and also the other way to look at that is that, I mean, it may sound a little bit defeatist, but I think that there's a segment of society that would sort of crave being able to just step away from their own reality, full stop, and to have the ability to sort of, transplant yourself somewhere else, even temporarily. I think that there's a lot of value there. And so I think there's an incredible amount of investment theses around that idea. But no, I think that there's broad appeal. So you don't think so?
Oh no, I don't know, because it doesn't appeal to me. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like,
So what about it?
It's just about Minecraft. I'd be like, that's never going to work. Obviously, it works, but it doesn't appeal to me. So it's kind of hard for me to know.
So I mean, what's the piece of it that doesn't interest you? Is it the investment thesis? Is it just like I don't really care about having an alternate world? Like, what's the?
Oh yeah, as a consumer, like I don't know if I would. I mean, so I'm just gonna superimpose Ready Player One type reality, which was really cool because they were like going back and exploring all these worlds and all this really cool stuff. But at the end of the day, you think, okay, man, the amount of time I would have to devote to really enjoy that is more time than I have. A, B, if a lot of people devote their time to this, then I can probably make money because they're not doing the things that I like to do. So like it might actually work out well if like half the population goes into zombie VR mode because other stuff has to be done. And finally, I'm just not sure. I'm curious in the. I think like. I think what we saw last year and what we're starting to see globally is that people are okay in isolation, but they're not meant to be isolated. And social media is not it doesn't bring people together. It's really
Mhm.
hard. You can get people for a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe, and you can kind of do that. But really, to kind of have a sustaining community, maybe you're aware of some, but to kind of have a sustaining community of positivity, it's really hard to keep that up because that's not how life is. Life is not positive all the time. It's got ups and it's got downs. You got to have tough conversations. You got to have light conversations. And at some point, social media just is not the mechanism for that. So you have to have people to your house. You got to have phone calls. You got to have FaceTimes. You got to have dinners. You got to have lunches. And so I think VR can't fix that either. And so I think people crave relationships, and ultimately they would be disappointed in VR.
What's the movie that Tom Cruise is in where he's this cop in this futuristic world and
Oh,
there's
Minority Report.
is it Minority Report where those three cogs are like kind of they have a premonition of crime in the future?
Yeah, or I think it's Minority Report, but it's yeah. I thought you were talking about Mel Sky for a second there.
No, I think you're right. I think it is a Minority Report. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
something like that where you have this ability to sort of have like that live interface and
Mhm.
not necessarily the crime fighting thing or the the premonition, but that interface on the wall, right, where you're able to interact with it, something like that. So as an example, when I see that, I see there's an immediate application, and I think this is something that is either likely in the works already, but if it's not, I'm sure it will be. But you could create an online, as a specific example, create an online poker community to poker
Right.
app that
Right.
would live on this virtual reality world, so that rather than playing on a computer and I can't see who's behind clicking the buttons, there's like there's an avatar sitting at the
Mhm.
table, and
Mhm.
this is all done virtually, stuff
Mhm.
like that. Is that maybe closer?
Yeah, no, 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 I can see it. Yeah, if you said, "Hey, you got this big deal in Africa," and I'm like, "I don't wanna fly 16 hours," and so I put on the
Mhm.
headset. I'm kinda like Yoda from, on Star Wars at the council meetings, you're just like hologram there. Yes, stuff like that, I can see
Mhm.
definitely some application because it's so much more efficient just to get because what you're really wanting is to see their actual face, to get their
Mhm.
reaction, and so as long as the VR is giving you that, the best it can, then that's fine. And we're all sitting here, we can talk, there's no lag, there's no cutting out, like we are now. Like, yes, I think that's quite possible, um,
Mhm.
to do something. And I've heard a lot of people say that Zoom business is not really going to be the future, and obviously it was overinflated last year because it had to be. But
Right.
I'm curious, what do you think? Do you think that Zoom is going the way of the dinosaur? Not obviously that far, but do you think it's gonna go back to like it was in 2019? I don't think so.
No, I mean, I think you and I talked about this, or sort of have touched on this a number of times over the months on air, and I think I'm still in the same position. And I think last time we talked about it, you and I may have disagreed. So I'm curious if maybe you've changed viewpoints. But I'm very much of the opinion that I think there is a an incredibly large percentage of people that, if given the choice, would prefer to work from home and work remote and have that, at least that option to be able to work remotely, etc. And I think there's a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of companies that have actually been able to look at what happens with their work product and what happens with the efficiencies once the workforce is not on location. There used to be, I think this I think the companies were in large part were scared that once the workforce moved remote, that they would lose efficacy, they'd lose responsibility, they'd lose traction and accountability, etc. I think that 2020 sort of, I mean, to your point, it was forced upon us, but I think that 2020 to a large degree sort of mitigated that and sort of killed that narrative. I think that there's certain places and certain things that you do that you have to be in a central location.
Sure.
But I think there's a lot of things that are going to be able to be done remotely. And someone like me, if I'm given the choice of working remotely or working in an office, I have the internal drive, and just like you have the internal drive that you don't need a boss telling you what to do, or like where you know how to point the engine. And so I think there's a lot of people like that. I think that people like in HR and some of those kind of vertical stacks.
Yeah.
Why would you not have them at home? You don't have to have the office space. You don't have to have the carry costs, etc. It seems to be kind of a win for everybody. What do you think?
Well, you bring up HR, and that's one thing I haven't heard a lot of discussion about. If you have your workers at home, I would imagine sexual harassment kind of cases and complaints go way down, and right, because there's no one there. There's no, and so if it's there,
or if they do happen, there's a record of it now, right? Because it had to happen on some. Yeah,
that's right. So maybe
right.
you get away the first time, but the second time, screen record, boom, it's over. And so, litigation and lawsuits could go down substantially because you have that going on. So I don't know if that's being talked about. I'm sure some C-suites are talking about that offline, but that will be a consideration to push. The other thing is,
by the way, before you go too far down, if you're going to be on Zoom and it's like an important meeting, like a court case, make sure you don't have the cat filter on.
That's frowned upon still.
I mean, if you're an attorney, it's okay, but otherwise,
that's kind of my go-to. But whatever. The other thing I was gonna say is, there was a push prior to 2019, and this has gone back for, I don't know, maybe the last decade, to get away from project-based type ideas. Like we want to go from the project, America was project-driven management. Now we need to go to like servant leadership and all that stuff. And part of that was because a lot of the bosses were jerks. Okay, so that's part of it. However, the gig economy, the rise of the gig economy at the same time of the COVID lockdowns, I think is important. So without the gig economy, I think there would have been a much harder push to push people back to the office. But the gig economy has told us that people can work project based. If you're an Uber driver, I need to make this much money, so I got to pick up this many rides, and that's a project more or less. So the thing that has kept Americans working is the idea that you need 40 hours to get health insurance, and the Department of Labor sets that time period, and that if you don't work 40 hours, you're not really working. Well, if you're a farmer back in 1612, you got up and you said, okay, today I need to do this. And then tomorrow I need to do this. And you're working on getting your crops harvested. And then guess what? Winter rolls around and you're kind of sitting around for a few months. Like, okay, not a lot to do here. Need to go kind of hoe some stuff and pull some weeds. And so much of our economy, I'm not trying to make a moral judgment here, but so much of our economy is driven by this 40-hour-a-week mentality. For some people, they need to work 60, 70, 80 hours, and that's what they got to do to pay their bills. For some people, their jobs are probably 20-hour-a-week jobs, but because of the insurance laws, because all the Department of Labor jobs, we've kind of forced this 40-hour thing. And so I think if we were wise, we'd sit back and say, okay, most of these jobs really don't require 40 hours a week. Because you hear people saying that they're finished their jobs with 2 or 3 hours to spare. It's like, right, your job never was a 40-hour-a-week job. Like, now, I'm not saying you should take a pay cut. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, like, we should realize that we all of these rules are they're constructs. We talk about constructs. That's an actual construct, 8 to 5. There's no reason you should have that. Now, if you're in the construction business, or I'm not making a universal statement, but by and large, there's a lot of these things are just constructs that the government came up with, and now we should be reevaluating those things.
It's interesting you say that, because when I hear you say that, what I immediately thought of is you're absolutely right. I mean, I think there's a large percentage of the workforce that work, the 8 to 5, and they clock in and clock out, and sort of the goal of that person's job. And I shouldn't say this as a blanket statement, but I already started, so I'm just going to keep barreling ahead. But I think there's a lot of people that sort of take that as, I clock in at 8, I clock out at 5. I need to do like enough stuff in the middle there to like not get on the radar and sort of make something happen, and like I can just continue. But if you're working from home, I think there's an extra scrutiny on the product that you're producing rather than the hours you're spending. And so I think you can look at that two ways. If you are incredibly high, if you're incredibly efficient and effective, maybe you can get a 40-hour work week done in 12. But the other way to look at that is, what if that person were to work 40 hours a week? You've now just 3.5x the work product in that same amount of time. And so rather than just kind of phoning it in and you looking at it as job security, you've now given the person the keys to being productive, and you get to unlock that. Does that drive with you at all?
Yeah, and the other thing on that is that the insurance, if health insurance wasn't tied to corporations, it's tied to individuals, that person could come and say, listen, I can do my work in 12 to 15 hours. I will sign a contract with you. I will give you 15 hours of work. I will do this. And then I'm going to go do it for the people. And oh, by the way, don't need health insurance because I'm taking care of that. You don't need my IRA because, or maybe I do want an IRA. It doesn't matter. And so then instead of making $30,000 a year for a 40-hour work week, they're making 120 because they did it for people, or they're making 30,000 and they're working 12 hours a week. Either way.
Right. No, that's exactly right.
The employee that we don't talk about. That's when the employee gets power.
So, you say that, and I completely agree with you. And it seems as though that sort of mechanism should be able to be applied within the, in-office construct. So, when you say that, do you kind of in the back of your mind, are you also thinking through, the reasons maybe corporations aren't trying or aren't endeavoring to get there now, or hadn't prior to 2020? Because that sort of motivation or that sort of cycle that you just described shouldn't be unique to where we are in the market today. Do you agree?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things, right? So let's just take that. Let's say me and you have a dry cleaning company. What I just described doesn't really matter, right? Because if you work for our dry cleaning or their dry cleaning, it doesn't matter. There's certain companies that would say, listen, I'll pay you 30 hours. I'll pay you $30,000 for the year, but you're going to be here 40 hours a week because I don't want you to go and work for my company. Right.
Yeah.
So you have that as well. And so who let the dogs out? Sorry. I'm not really sorry, but it was appropriate. It was appropriate.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
You should fire the song. So I think you have some companies who will always want to keep the reign on their employees because for them, or have no compete, something like that. So for them, they'd say, well, you can go work wherever you want to, but you can't work for our competitors or whatever. So you will have people who want that, and that's fine. That's their right as an employer to ask that of the employee. But what I think for most people, Ben, the thing that that keeps employees at employers is health insurance. Would you agree or disagree with that? You're muted.
That's such a tough question because that's not even in the calculus of what I look at. But you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think
you have a wife and kids, or
that by and large, how many examples could you and I both spout out, off the top of my head of people that's kept a job because of the health insurance or left a job for better health insurance somewhere else. That seems to be a major driver. And I guess my question to you, looking at that, is that a relatively new advent given, Obamacare and just kind of the craziness of the healthcare policies of more recent, or is that something that sort of is a carryover from our parents' generation? Is that seems to be a relatively new dynamic?
For us, it was always a dynamic that people were asking about. What was it? How does it work? Stuff like that. So, I don't know. I'm sure some employees or prospects turned us down over health insurance, but towards the end, we had a pretty good plan. But you are seeing there's this group in Oklahoma that's all cash. You can go to the website right now. You want to get a knee replacement? Here's the price. You want to get a heart surgery or whatever they offer. So you are starting to see that come back, and again, that empowers employees because now they say, well, it's $1,000 or $5,000, and according to them, I don't know that they have people from all over the country will fly in because it's cheaper than their deductible. So if there's more competition in the marketplace for healthcare or just cash prices, you will see the employees have power.
So I don't think you're wrong, by the way, but one of the stories, I don't think I ever really dug in enough to really speak intelligently about it. Well, I really can't speak intelligently about most things, but that's neither here nor there. I said it for you. I thank you. I'm getting better at this. You have to give me that. I'm getting better. Thanks. But what was it? Was it in 2018 or 2019 when Amazon, Google, and somebody else, I think Facebook, came out and said that they were going to partner together and create their own healthcare platform and their own healthcare marketplace and policies? And they quickly, this is me whitewashing the, or this is me sort of whatever, but they quickly decided that it wasn't going to be profitable and it was too much of a hassle to get done. So when I hear that, and coupled with what you just said about the private, the private market sort of being able to arbitrage this and come up with a solution, I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things that we've talked about on this podcast where if the private industry and the capitalists in the country were to take hold, you see this freedom and you see this ubiquity of whatever the service is. Healthcare doesn't seem to be that way. It seems to be that the laws are written so that it's heavily weighted towards one side, and the government now has the clause in it, and that's inextricable. Do you see the dynamic differently?
Yeah, well, hold on one second. Let me make sure I'm following along here. Are you so I'm pulling up the site here. It's surgerycenterok.com, I believe, is the people here.
Okay.
And I'm just going through the site. I never have been here. But I think this is them. Anyways, remember Free Market Medical Association. Yeah, so if you go through their website and you can find your cost of your procedure on the website, if I understand correctly. And so one of the things that they point out is why can you not find that out anywhere else? If you want to go buy a car, you want to get your home repaired, you want to build a new home, you want to do anything, you can get a cost, but you cannot get a cost for your medical procedure. Because it's like, well, you got the deductible, and they go through how it works. And to your point, Ben, what you're seeing is that, okay, we've got to charge the insurance company here for this, and we've got to add this up here, and so all these costs get tacked on, and they're trying to move. It's free. I can hit the exit button now. But so I think, my personal stance on insurance, I don't get mad at anybody for having insurance, but I generally believe, especially in the US, that most people really only need catastrophic insurance. You get cancer, you have open heart surgery. We really don't need I got to go to the doctor on a regular basis for most people. That's because we're the healthiest people in the history of humanity, of human life. And so I can't say the word there of humanity. And so I don't know, whatever. We're the healthiest people. I'm not the smartest person, but we're healthy. We have
for those listening, he's clearly not talking about mental health. He's talking about like physical health.
Thank you for that. Obviously, and I'm a specimen. So I mean, obviously,
exhibit A.
Exhibit A. So I know us with our insurance. We were on private insurance, and then we went to some other kind of insurance thing for a while. And went back to the other insurance. We've tried different stuff, and when our deductible was really low, and when our copay was really low, we would go to the doctor more often. When it wasn't, we didn't. Guess what? Our health was the same. It was like, it's $20 to go to the doctor. Or it was like, you got to pay cash price for the doctor. It's $150.
So here's my pushback to that, because I by and large agree with you. My pushback to that is that by looking at it through that prism, you enable a large sector of the country to be able to do what I'm going to qualify kind of an umbrella preventative medicine, in terms of, you're not sure if you're sick, but you're like not feeling right, and you don't have health insurance, and so you end up not going to the doctor, but the thing that you felt in your side ends up being a malignant tumor, and you didn't know until it was too late, and you just like, it wasn't on your radar. So I'm not talking about like, you have COVID and you're really sick. These are sort of like, and I struggle with kind of moving the needle far enough to disincentivize, I guess I'd call it, certain people or a large sect of the country from being able and being able to do those things. Now the immediate foil to that, and I want to be clear, I don't support, this Obamacare stuff is compulsory, right? I mean, you don't have a choice. You must get it or you're fined. What?
It's a tax.
Tax. They like that word, tax.
But
so I mean, that is, I'm going to use the word laughable. It's not funny, but I mean, that's just abysmal. But but there. So I don't think it should be compulsory. But I also wouldn't support a move away from the ease of access to some of those other services. I don't know. Well,
right. So you're kind of presuming a lot of things there, and I don't know these answers. You're presuming that the deductibles or copays are cheap now, right? And so
did Piper just pipe in? Was that what that was? Sorry, too soon?
No, it's not.
I thought that was good. I enjoyed that one. Keep going.
You're right. You're right. You're right. That's yeah. What I was trying to say before my tongue swelled 47 sizes inside my mouth was um, the presumption of your argument is that for most people, their copay and deductible is cheap already. I don't know that answer. Okay, so that's part of it. The other part is that if everyone was cash, that the price wouldn't go down, right? So if you are, if you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, I don't know how many doctors, what percentage in Texas you can go to, but there's only a certain percentage of doctors that you can go to. You can't go to all of them, I don't think, because they're not all in network. At least in Louisiana, the insurance we had there, that's how it worked. And so, the doctors aren't really competing for business because they're going to get a certain percentage just by the way the plan works. The plan is tied to your company. And so if I can sell your company the plan and I can work out of the hospital, oh, by the way, whether it benefits Ben or Ryan is immaterial. And so the market is almost always the solution. And so the more you free it up, the prices will come down. They just will. Listen, I can tell you, we have this other insurance that we used to have. We'd have to pay cash price and then we get reimbursed for it, right? Okay. They charge us $2,000 to have a baby. We had it on insurance. They charge us $20,000. They charge us $20,000. They charge the insurance. Okay, one of those things is not like the other. Okay, okay, the baby's the same. One was a boy, one's a girl, but the price is not the same. And so there's huge problems with what's going on with the insurance industry, and that they're stacking the cost, and they're making out like bandits. The hospitals are making out like bandits. Everybody's making out like bandits. And oh, by the way, me and you have to pay a higher premium each month or each year, whatever. So, get rid of those clowns. You're muted. You're muted. You're probably saying something smart.
I mean, yeah, I know. When I'm muted is probably best because like whatever I'm saying is
You're
not just making the airwaves. Yeah, thank you. No, but I mean, I think that. So when you say that there's like a $20,000 bill for from the hospital for the baby, the consumer doesn't actually pay $20,000, right? That's like the insurance.
Insurance that
right. And so what I was going to say, and I don't think that either you or I are well versed. Certainly I'm not well versed enough to really talk about the sort of the pricing model that speaks to. One of the things that I find, I'm going to use the word fascinating. I don't know what other word to use about some recent announcements within the healthcare space is that, I forget what the law was, but when Trump was in office, they passed what was essentially a healthcare pricing transparency law that said that they need to now be a lot more transparent about what they're charging and how they're charging, et cetera. Now, I can tell you that I've seen a couple of bills or hospital bills since that came to pass. It doesn't seem like that has happened at all. I don't know about you. I don't know if you're, recently you've had a scenario where you had to, you got a hospital bill and you had to call, the hospital to what I'm going to use, just basically is dispute the bill of how did you get to this number? What am I actually being charged for? And the times that I have done that, every single time there are line items that just magically disappeared off the bill. And so it seems like like you're talking about the incentives for the healthcare companies and the incentives for the insurers and the incentives for the hospitals are directly misaligned, I guess, with a negative correlation relationship to the consumer, right? Because but I guess again, maybe this is a better nuance. If the hospital has a $34,000, $20,000 sticker on your bill, but they're only expecting you to pay $1,500, I think the argument can be made that delta is just pure fluff to make it seem like you're getting a really good deal or something like that, right? As opposed to if we were to move the cost structure to actually cost. So I had a shoulder surgery back in 2018, and to your point, the sticker number on the bill, the insurance number at the top of the line, was $117,000. Now it was almost like a total reconstruction, so I mean it was aggressive, but $120,000 for a shoulder surgery. Now my deductible at the time I think was $6,500, and so I paid the $6,500. But if you were to pay a cash price, to your point, that website, if you were to pay a cash price for a shoulder surgery, what would the actual what's the monetary that it costs?
Here we go. Let's see. So let's see if we can get this thing to work. Shoulder.
Lapper out of me.
Hold on. Shoulder. Arthroscopic labral repair.
Yeah.
That no.
Yeah.
Yes. That.
Yes.
Implants not included.
No implants, just screws and sutures.
6160.
$6,000.
6160.
Yeah. So okay. So the amount that I ended up paying is about the cash price, which is interesting, by the way. I mean, but that caveat is if my deductible had been 20,000 or my deductible had been 2,000, I would have paid either of those numbers. So it wasn't as though it was priced out at $6,000. But shooting from the hip, $6,000 for a shoulder surgery. I mean, that doesn't seem like a terrible deal, right? If you have the 6,000, you need the surgery. That doesn't. I mean, that doesn't scare me, or that doesn't throw me off. Does it? I mean, does that seem right to you?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think the thing here is that you can look and know, right? And so you're going, okay, here we go. And that's the thing. Yeah. I think if you have, I don't know these guys from Adam, obviously. But listen, I'll tell you this: go to Bob Murphy Show, episode 185, and these guys are on talking about how they do it, and see what you think, and go from there. I mean, I think that's kind of where you guys start at. So like I'm just scrolling through these numbers here. It's alphabetical order. So an Achilles repair is 5,700. I can't even say that. An ankle is 3,700. Bicep repair is 82. Labral is 61. Elbow is 53. Let's see here. A hip arthroscopy simple is 55. A knee is 37. There's all kinds of knee stuff here. Rotator cuff is 8,200. And so what I like about this is that it's not all the same because there's different surgeries require different things, right? Which is what you would expect. You would expect it's not 2,500 for this. And so I'm not saying insurance should have a place. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it's.
Oh, but again, to your point about the capitalist, element of this, if you move to a structure where you're paying a cash price on that sort of deal, I'm sure there are going to be cottage industries, and I'm sure there are companies in Oklahoma that provide financing specifically for those things.
They have it on there. Exactly.
Right. Which in Texas, like the hospital wants their money. Now you might be able to like privately shop on your own for like a separate, but you're going to get killed because that's going to be like payday loan type stuff, as opposed to having this structure where the financing is just axiomatic to the process.
Right. That's right. And so, there's all kinds of stuff on here. So folks, it's a surgery center. Okay. If they want to go check it out.
I mean, if we're going to pitch them and talk about them for like 10 minutes, shouldn't we get a cut if whoever calls in and lines up for surgeries? I mean,
obviously.
By the way, I mean, do they have LASIK?
I don't know if they do. Let's see here. How you spell LASIK?
I don't know. Maybe we can like start a GoFundMe for you to get some.
It's taken you a few months to make your first joke.
I will say, we're 42 minutes into this thing, and I had held back. Are you on solid food yet? Are you on an adult diet yet?
Yeah, well, I got off it on the weekend, right? Obviously, and because
I mean, clearly you're only doing it for show. So why would you not do it? Why would you do it when you're not recording? I mean, that makes sense.
I've had 2 cans of soup today and 1 cookie, if that's what you're asking. So I'm starving.
You've had 2 cans of soup and what?
1 or 2 cookies. Like I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
But I mean, you're hungry. Like, I mean, regardless. Where are we out on the scale journey?
So I got down. I'm trying to think here. Math is hard. 8 pounds, something like that, last week, and then I'm back up 3. So I'm just down 5 pounds. So.
It's that cookie. They add up.
That cookie. So I'm back on this week, man. Back on for the weekend. I can't listen. I'm not doing it over the weekend. That's just unnecessary torture. That's gonna make me angry and mad. It made me want to quit. So
if I like, how you see some videos of those just like crazy workout guys like pushing a truck up a hill or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You think You know, if I like dangled like Krispy Kreme donuts off the back of the pickup truck and like led you down the street, would you like kind of run out? I mean, you might lose the rest of the pounds.
Krispy Kremes. Let me tell you something. That is the goat of donuts.
So actually, let's talk about that for a second. So
I want to open up a Krispy Kreme.
Hot off the out of the oven, and like the first. Those are. There's nothing better.
That sign should be like a turn signal. Like they should have a traffic cop walk out there, directs, like everything stops, just flowing. Krispy Kreme. Because when that sign's on, son, down in Orange Beach, Alabama, they have a CC's Pizza, which the kids love, and the next door is a Krispy Kreme. So you go there and eat like 3 pounds of pizza, and you walk out, and the hot sign's on. You're like, screw it, let's go. No, 3 dozen, let's go.
I think it's in like South Carolina. There's a minor league baseball stadium that makes burgers out of a Krispy Kreme donut as the bun. Yeah. They grill it and flip it inverted, and then have the burger. I think you and I need to. We need to go on a food tour. Is what needs to happen here. We were talking about. There's like a 3-pound burrito challenge in Dallas. You know, there's this Krispy Kreme donuts. But what I was going to say quickly, but so Krispy Kreme hot is. I don't think there's anything better in the donuts universe. No, however. Krispy Kreme, like once it's not hot, there's a bunch that superseded. There's a bunch that jumps to the top of the list. The top of my list, just donut, period. And this is going to definitely label me as Texan, but Shipley's Donuts, it doesn't get me better. It just doesn't.
Shipley's good.
I'm sure you make some really good donuts.
Oh yeah, obviously. No, Krispy Kreme hot. It's like it is. It's like Lance Armstrong peak Tour de France. There's no remember when Armstrong gave me a ride and he'd get up next to him and look at him and he'd just leave him. Like that's the Krispy Kreme donut right now. Juice to the gills, like ready to roll. Yellow jersey on every day. You're not stopping. That's Krispy Kreme.
So I thought that was an HGH joke.
Well, it's whatever joke you want it to be. That's the hot Krispy Kreme. Peak Armstrong, juice to the gills. That's what that is. I tell you what, though, their chocolate donut, it's not that good. It's really not good. I like, and I like a chocolate donut. It's just not that good. It's like,
no, it's not. It's not.
It's surprising. I want to open a Krispy Kreme, so I'll die young and happy.
Let's do it. I'm done. Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
So as we're quickly hurtling towards the finish here, I'm going to navigate us back onto do what?
No.
I'm going to navigate us back onto something more topical. We're going to lean into your expertise. I want to stop talking. Let's let you talk for a minute.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes. Oh no, you killed it because I was just going to kill the stream like right there. I was just going to cut it. Just get an NFT. By the way, guys, watch out. There is a Don't Let the Facts NFT coming out sometime in the next few weeks. It's going to happen. Watch out for that. If you don't see it on Ryan's LinkedIn, check mine because
you actually see it there.
Thank you. Thank you. No, what I was curious, I believe you posted on LinkedIn, or it was either LinkedIn or Twitter, but that you had read that the 100-year marathon book about what?
Yeah, no, I'm just
you did finish it, right?
Yeah.
I was just curious. So I think you and I talked about that off air, and it's on my nightstand, waiting to be read, but I haven't read it yet. What do you think about the author's take? Can you give us sort of a short synopsis and whether you agree or not?
I think that Americans, by and large, should read books like this to realize how incompetent our political elite are. Like it's a masterpiece. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm not saying he's an idiot. I'm not saying anything bad about him. That's not my point. When you read like his book or John Bolton's book,
who is his, by the way, just
Michael Pillsbury. Sorry, Michael Pillsbury. If you read their books and you just take it what they say at face value, you just assume they're telling you the truth. That's what I do. That's I have a reason to doubt them. And then you listen to what they said, did, or advised. It's astonishing. It's astonishing just how incompetent we are. And it's not us. It's just how humans are. And, the geopolitical game from the U.S. perspective is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like that is our foreign policy. We can try to deny it or we won't. That is our foreign policy.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked at one point about us convincing Raytheon or someone to sell the Chinese torpedoes or missiles, and that was a mistake. It's like, oh, really? 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 Like, y'all thought that was a good idea back then. Well, you thought it was a good idea because you thought the enemy of your enemy was the Chinese, that they were going to help you out. And so, like, so much of what they do is just so stupid. And it shows you, I'm not saying they've got ill intentions. It's just they create this construct and this worldview, and they operate in it. And then when it doesn't work, they reevaluate it. And then they're like, okay, here's the new construct and worldview. And it's very shallow for the most part. It's like right now, the whole thing is that, China's bad and therefore we got to stop them. It's like, okay, I'm happy to concede that China's bad. They are communists after all. So I'm happy to have that conversation. But do you believe, like, what are your principles? So this has nothing to do with what China's doing. It has more to do with what you're doing. And I think we don't, America as a nation really doesn't have principles. And so, do we want to be a free market society? Do we want to be kind of more of a liberal democracy like you see in Europe? We don't really know. And so, when you talk about how to fix the problem with China, well, China can move over 40 years so many people out of poverty because they are a communist regime. And they can build all these things because they can direct their economy. If we look at that and start getting envious, then we're going to miss the picture, which is that they have empty buildings that are cracking and falling apart. They are going to, when you direct your economy, you're going to miss and you're going to whiff. And so if you just look at the big buildings and go, oh, wow. Or if you look at all this other stuff, you go, you miss the principle. So either you have a thesis on communism and you believe it, or you don't. You have a thesis on the free market and you believe it, or you don't. Now, it doesn't mean you're right or not, but I'll stop. Go ahead.
No, so I'm curious. I had a very specific question for you down that path. I think you probably have gotten to the point in the Gates book where he talks about this. If you don't know what I'm, if whatever. So in the Bill Gates How to Avoid a Climate Disaster book, he talks about, or one of the data points that he puts out is that China, within the first, I think it was the first 16 years of the 20th century, built more. Put more concrete out into their domestic market than the entirety of the U.S. across the entire 20th century. When you hear that data point, coupling with what you just said, is that a positive thing, or are there negative things associated with that people maybe aren't talking about? What do you kind of see as when you hear that data point? What do you think?
Okay, first off, it's impressive. Let's just acknowledge that. Like, it's really impressive. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of concrete. Okay, that's impressive. And then there's the next level, which is, when you talk about socialism or communism or whatever, you have to acknowledge it can do good things. It brought a lot of people who were in rice farms into decent living standards. So for that's factual. Then you start saying, well, what do I know about government? I know when I go to the DMV, it sucks. I know when I deal with the IRS, it's terrible. So if that's true here, then what do you think it's like there, right? So then you start thinking about all of those things, which is corruption, slow, it's being slow, there are inefficiencies, and all those things are going to be on steroids in China compared to where they're in the US, because we have at least some checks and balances. Whereas a communist regime, yes, this is all propaganda. Don't believe anything. So a communist regime is, we think of communism as kind of like it's very efficient. No, it's very corrupt, right? Because these local officials, they want their free market to work, so they're paying off people. So it's true. They should be applauded for bringing these people out of poverty on some level, but also, again, there are empty buildings in China that have been built that got cracks in them, or buildings that are built that got cracks in them. So when the government's pushing all these agendas, they can accomplish these crazy vast things, but there's plenty of cracks in the foundation. And so the envious part of the U.S. looks over there like, oh, wow, well, if we directed our economy, we could do this. You could, but you're also going to have to do all these other things. And so we don't talk about the trade-offs and what's going on there. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of how I think about it.
No, it's interesting. I mean, because if you are comparing the Chinese economy and the engine to ours, I mean that I think you're wildly missing a lot of the picture. I don't think any of those interests are actually aligned, right? I mean, China is clearly moving in a different direction. I think, and that's irrespective of how you feel about the U.S. governing style. I mean, we're supposed to be a republic democracy or democratic republic, one of those. The practice clearly does not paint that picture. But regardless, you're not going to get to the same place as a China, because to your point, the Chinese can mandate and guide their economy like no other.
But they're also going to miss, and so go look at how our government is. Go look at Oh wow, we're getting a sponsor, getting paid now. Now we're talking.
Yeah, buddy.
But just go look at like our military defense budget and how many. There's people who track this stuff, like the F-35s that are late, or the battleships that are late,
Mm-hmm.
the tanks are late. Go look at that, and that's our government. Just think about what's happening at their government, the corruption that's going on there. So it's happening, and so we just look at all this stuff, and we kind of pigeonhole it like, oh no, I'm not saying that their economy will overtake ours. I'm not saying a lot of things. I'm just simply saying that you'll hear this narrative like China has this many miles of high speed rail, the U.S. has none. I do hear that. Right? That's factual. Okay. The question is, A, who do you want to pay for it? Do you want to open it up eminent domain so whenever the government wants to build high speed rails, they can? Like there's like that's just a fact. There's more to it than that fact. And so we get mad about a pipeline being built right now and eminent domain involved that. So we're going to open up when the government views that a high speed rail is necessary. We're going to go with it. Okay, well, let's talk about that. And so I think that's a lot of the things behind it. And finally, I'll say this. China's positioning right now. Did you see they struck a 25-year deal with Iran over the weekend?
I didn't. Talk to me about that.
So they struck a 25-year deal with Iran. And so China, the thing that China has going for them is that they're not in the morality game. The U.S. tries to play like it's in the morality game. And that's, I think we really have to re-examine that more than anything else. Like, do we really care what Iran's doing? Do we really care? I'm not talking about me and you. I'm talking about our political elite. Do they really care? Or are they just trying to help placate the Saudis? And those are different. That's a different discussion.
That's a very different discussion because, I think that even those two things have different motives, right? In answer to your question, do we really care about what Iran is doing? I think we absolutely care, even if it's just as far as we need the finger on the pulse to have the control. If it's whether or not it's actually that we care what they're doing, as opposed to we just need to be intimately involved so we have that stranglehold, right?
They shot down an airliner and no one did anything.
Listen, don't let the facts. It's even on the screen. It's literally right there. Come on.
This was last year. They literally shot down an airliner full of innocent civilians. And what happened to them over that?
Literally nothing. Were they? By the way, were they actually? I don't know this question. Were they even sanctioned by NATO? Like, were they sanctioned at all?
I know there was some talk about it. They may have gotten a slap on the wrist or something, but nothing of substance.
It makes my head hurt, to be honest with you.
So I think we have to be honest. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be punished or not punished. I'm just simply saying, when you look at these things, China's like, oh well, you shot an airline or whatever. We're still to deal with you, and we're like, no, well, okay, you're the enemy of my friend type stuff. It doesn't work. It just does. That's just not. This is what got us into a 60-year Cold War with the Russians. Was this same mentality,
right? And
so why do we keep doing this? And so Pillsbury, these guys, it's for all their talk of history. It's like they don't know history. They don't think.
But aren't we just in a very different? But aren't we in a Cold War with China right now?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. Do you?
If we're not there now, I do see us on the path that direction. Maybe we're not there yet.
It's possible. It's possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's possible.
So I sent you an article off air, and I know we're running short on time, so we can wrap it up in a couple minutes. But I sent you an article off air this week. It was talking about some pretty aggressive takes in sort of the macro climate of the world. But I'm curious what the donuts facts.
It's not on my side. I noticed how you got on your side. So I'm pointing that it should be on my side too. I don't know why it's not on my side. Whatever.
I was trying to help you. I don't know. Wait, there it is.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Thank you.
I
was worried.
What was it talking about?
Your aggressive article.
Oh yeah. So in the back half of the article, it talked about this, the more geopolitical dynamic of this trifecta of Iran, Russia, and China being, irrespective of their own political agendas and where they're headed, they have one common enemy, and that's us. And I think that data point alone is irrefutable. I'm curious though, when you and I talked about it, it seemed like you were maybe taking the stance that sort of threat, for lack of a better word, is more benign than maybe myself or others may think. I'm curious how you sort of see the responsibility of the U.S. within that dynamic. Obviously, Russia, China, and Iran are going to do what they're going to do. How involved do you feel like the U.S. needs to be in planting a flag or playing defense or like what have you, or is it just we can let them do what they're going to do and they're going to do a bunch of talking, but as long as they stay on this side of the aisle, then we don't really care. What's the dynamic?
Yeah, I don't. So I generally think, and this is when you go read these books, you go study foreign policy. We Americans have supported atrocities around the world. We have backed regimes that have gone badly. And so we start trying to say, well, America is the world's police. Well, we're not very good at that. And that's my larger point, is we're just not very good at it. So if you can tell me who's good at it, let's talk about that.
But okay, so let's unpack that for a second.
Yeah.
Good at what? Because the goal is not actually to be the world police, and I think we all know that, right? And so good at what?
But most Americans would not say that. Most Americans say, well, we're the world's police. If we're not there to protect democracy, who would? Da da da. And okay, well, why are we in Afghanistan? Why are we bombing Syria? What's we're doing in Iraq? And I know you have a point about pulling out quickly, but go ahead.
Well, no. I think my answer to that, and this is obviously broad brushstrokes, but my answer to that is control and the footprint. It's not any sort of aim, or it's not, hey, we need to effectuate X, Y, or Z. It's the presence in the region because of the resources there. And for me, it's full stop there. I don't think there's a lot of layers there. It's not as though we expect. It's not as though in the last 10 years we haven't really made any moves. So right after 9/11, we invaded, and there was a number of years of war. But then after, and I forget the years, but there were a couple of years there where we had made some moves towards actually instilling a government that was moving sort of towards democracy. Then we decided that wasn't a good idea, and we decided to let that that crater on its own. And so now we have sort of we basically have the situation we had prior to invasion, but we're still there as an occupation. And so it's now an occupation as opposed to actually moving that society somewhere. And so when I say it's just about control, now that we're there, let me say it differently. Now that we have the established base and we have the foothold, where's the impetus to leave? Because as you and I have talked about off air, at this point, not very many, if any, Americans are dying. America is clearly accreting wealth and power from the occupation. And so, what's the impetus from our side to say, let's pack up and go? Other than the PR thing, which doesn't seem to hold enough weight. Do you disagree with that?
I mean, only if you're a commie would you argue to stay. I would say. I mean, why? What? Think if Iraq was invaded in our country, and they're like, listen, you guys are screwed up, but we're here, and why should we leave? We'd be like, we don't care. Leave. It's our country. That's your country. Leave. Get out of here. And so, I don't think if people are concerned about China, let's just keep it to China. If people are concerned about China, do you think that by having occupational forces in the Middle East will gain those countries as long-term allies, or will push them away? And this is simple as that. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to this, but do you think that Afghanistan in the next 20 years is going to become a hardened ally to the U.S.? No. Iraq? No. Right? So you're not doing anything. Now, you might be afraid if you pull out and leave, China might pick it up tomorrow. Okay, what you're wasting in devaluing your currency. And it goes back to the currency for me. If the U.S. fiscal policy was actually sound, our dollar would be so strong it would crush their currency. But we don't care about that because we want to have all these little skirmishes and wars. So I know we gotta go. This is a good topic to do a whole show on.
Yeah, we should. No, last thing I want to say before we wrap up is, right. I think that one of the strong proponents and one of the definite things in the positive column, and I can't speak to whether this is narrative or truth because I don't live in the region, but I think one of the common threads that you see is the educated and the women having more of a platform to be free, have a place in society, etc. And that doesn't happen without the U.S. invading. And I think we all know that. So that is an example of one of the positive threads here. And I am concerned that if we do decide to just up and leave, those sections of society will be even more targeted than they were previously because they'll become sort of the scapegoat of, you're the last remnants of this occupation and we need to wipe you off the face of the earth. And so I think things like that are incredibly concerning and it makes, and to a degree, I think the U.S. is culpable to that dynamic. And so for us to just all right, mission accomplished, we're out, is a tough sell.
Okay, so let me ask you this real quick. This is, I'm gonna call these numbers off to you. This is the number of documented civilian deaths in the Iraq War from 2003 to 2021.
American civilians or civilians like over there? Or
this is number of documented civilian deaths in the Iraq War. So I'm assuming this is going to be mainly Iraqis, right?
Okay.
12,000. I'm going to round it up or down. Just make it easy. 12,000, 16,000, 30,000, 26,000, 10,000, 5,000, 4,000, 4,000, 4,000, 9,000, 20,000, 17,000, 16,000, 13,000, 3,000, 2,000, and then 900 for last year, and then 120 so far this year. So I'm not making a political statement here. My question is when we talk about the freedoms and liberties that we're saying that you gave, I want people to ask: is it worth all those civilians dying for that? Because
sure, but Mike, I guess my question would be, how many of those people would have died if, regardless, right? Because there's a large death rate of civilians in the region, and there's, the government over there and the military. Oh, I should say the military. The extremists over there like to kill their own people. And so, what would that number have been without an occupation? It certainly wouldn't have been at those levels, but it wouldn't have been a zero number, right?
Right. And so, and I'm not trying to get into the weeds on this. I think that it's easy, and I'm not accusing you of this. I think that people need to be careful to thought, well, what about this? Like, okay, well then what about this? And what about this? And it's hard because on some level the U.S. tendency is to justify its position because we're afraid to criticize it because we feel like that's un-American. And on some might argue that position. I would argue that, if we're killing innocent civilians, we better have a very good reason for it. And I'm not sure 20 years into our occupations in Afghanistan and 17 years or 18 years into Iraq, we still have good reasons for civilians dying as our fault. If they're dying at the hands of the Iraqis or the Iranians or the Saudis or the Houthis or whoever, then I can't. I'm not happy about that. But it's got nothing to do with my dollars going to support it. You should want to be like me. That's what you should aspire to. So you go like you're broken.
Okay, yeah, but I don't think we've talked about it on Don't Let the Facts, but we talked about on bringing the closers of setting achievable goals, and to be you, that's just like I got to work up to that. Like, you are the talking head with a capital T, capital H. I'm just like podcast host with a lowercase p and a lowercase h.
Co-host.
I said host on purpose. Don't correct me. Hopefully sometime in the next 2 years, I'll be a platformed co-host on LinkedIn Live. We're not there yet, but Ryan, as always, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for thank you for showing up 2 minutes early and going live 7 minutes late. Appreciate that. As always, hopefully next week will be smoother. I'll be back on location, back in Midland. I'm in Houston today, but going back on Wednesday. Although I do have a new addition to the family. I was gonna say something else, but I won't. I'll wait till next time. That's all I got.
A wife?
Time, man.
Child? Children?
We truck.
Same thing for you.
It's less of a loss leader.